All right, welcome to today's class on Dotloop 101. My name is Leah with Scott Leroy Marketing, and in today's class, I will be taking you through the basics of the Dotloop system. So this class is meant for those people who maybe have not seen Dotloop before, or maybe you've messed around with Dotloop a couple times, but you're not quite sure of how everything works. Okay, it will be a slower moving class, and the more advanced class is the Dotloop 201 class, which again can be viewed on slmtraining.com if you'd like to watch that after this class. So to go ahead and access our Dotloop account, the first thing we'll want to do is go to mykw.kw.com. You'll see that at the top of my browser here. Again, that was mykw.kw.com. And so when you get to mykw.kw.com, it might log you in right away like it has for mine, or you might be prompted for a username and password. And if you can't remember your username and password for mykw, I totally understand. There's a million passwords for everything. If that's the case for you, feel free to email us at support@scottleroymarketing.com. Let me go ahead and send out what our support email address is here. So if you're not sure of your myKW username and password, feel free to email support@scottleroymarketing.com, and we'd be happy to go ahead and help you get that figured out so you can participate in today's class. Now, as you log in, where you're going to want to focus your attention is this eEdge control panel box on the top center of your screen, where you'll see my leads, my marketing, my transactions, and so forth. So a lot of your KW Tech tools are found in this eEdge control panel box. So if you're just starting to learn the KW system, this is a great place to start within this eEdge control panel. And where we're actually going to focus on today's class is where it says myTransactions. So you'll see and hear Dotloop. Oh, is it breaking up for everyone? Is anyone else having trouble hearing me? Okay, great. I'm going to if you guys don't mind holding on for a brief second, I'm going to restart my audio. So 1 second and we'll get this restarted. All right, guys, hopefully the audio is better. Please let me know if everyone can hear me. And we can get started on class one more time. Hopefully this audio is better for everyone. Let me know. Awesome. Okay, guys, thank you so much for letting me know. Awesome. Sorry about that little glitch there, but I'm glad we're back rolling here. All right, well, keep me posted if the audio breaks up at all again. We can revamp things and move forward. But now that we are all on mykw.kw.com, let's go ahead and click on Start My Transactions. So it's that blue link there. You'll see it says Start My Transactions, and you'll see and hear Dotloop being referred to as both Dotloop and My Transactions. So that's one and the same. Just a heads up. So once we click on the Start My Transactions blue link, it should take you directly into your Dotloop account here. Now that is the best way to get into your Dotloop account, by logging into mykw.kw.com and clicking on Start My Transactions like we did today. Of course, you can go to dotloop.com directly to log in if you prefer. And also, just a heads up, there is a Dotloop mobile app. for iPhone and Android users, which is especially awesome if you have a tablet. So if you have an iPad or an Android tablet, when you're on the go and with your clients, it's great to be able to allow your clients to sign right next to you from your tablet. So a Dotloop app is a great thing to go ahead and download. All right, and as you get into your Dotloop account, the first thing I want to go over is what Dotloop is. So the biggest thing that you guys need to know about Dotloop is going to be your online filing cabinet. So you're going to create a loop per property that you sell. So when you hear me say the word loop, what I mean is an online file where you'll be storing all the different forms that goes into a transaction. Now, the biggest thing on that is that if you are representing a client who is selling their home with you and buying the next home, that is going to be two different loops because that's two different properties. So again, you'll have a loop per property that you sell or a loop per transaction. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to everyone. So it's not per client, it is per property that you sell. Of course, let me know if you have any questions on anything as we go along here. But the first thing that we're going to go over is the navigation in your Dotloop account. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about what each one of these icons does on the top right here, and I'll make sure to highlight the ones that are most important, that you'll be utilizing the most in your Dotloop experience. So first of all, you'll see this first icon on the top right, black toolbar, kind of looks like a bar graph. That will show you all of your stats for your Dotloop account, your year-to-date sales, okay, any stats that go into all of your loops. All right, the next icon to the right is a big one, so this is one you'll want to highlight. This is your loops icon, and this will always take you back to your Dotloop homepage. So if you're ever lost in the Dotloop system or just simply need to get back to this Dotloop homepage, this little icon, it looks like a smiley face with no eyes, okay, that's the one you'll want to click to get back home here. Moving to the right, you'll have your tasks. So within each loop, you can create to-do lists for yourself within each loop, which is awesome if you're like me and love to create to-do lists to keep myself on track. This tasks icon on the top right will show you an overarching to-do list, task list, for all of your loops cumulatively. Yes, this class will be available within about 2 hours after I give the class. It'll be up on slmtraining.com. There are other Dotloop 101 classes already on slmtraining.com, and they're very similar. So you are absolutely able to go back to slmtraining.com right after today's class and watch the Dotloop 101 class and the Dotloop 201 class for that matter, so you can pause it and follow along. So hopefully that answers your question. Of course, no problem. All right, so we're up here on this icon here. So moving to the right here, we do have our people section. So that's going to show you all of the people that you have ever worked with in your Dotloop account. So I'll show you their contact information and so forth. To the right here, this is another big one to highlight. So these are all of your templates. This icon that looks like 2 sheets of paper on the top right here, those will be all the forms that your office staff put into your Dotloop account for you. So if you ever want to print out a blank document and take it onto your appointment, you would do so from this templates icon right here, and we'll be going over that in just a moment. So we'll be starting class here in just a second here. And lastly, on the far right, you should see either your initials or your headshot if you have that loaded in on the far right black toolbar. Some things to note here. First of all, your member ID. Really important to just know at least where that is. If you call Dotloop support, and their phone number is on the bottom of every page within your Dotloop account, if you call Dotloop support and enter in your member ID when prompted, it actually moves you to the very front of the support line because you're a KW Premium member. So very cool, very important to know to cut that support time down. With that being said, guys, your Dotloop account might look slightly different than mine, and that's okay, that's normal. What you do want to make sure you're seeing is that it says KW Premium on the top left. Typically, you'll want this black and red color. Again, it looks a little different for each market center, but typically you do want to see KW Premium on the top left. If you do not see KW Premium on the top left here, that means you're not connected to your market center and you won't be able to access all of your forms, which is of course important. So if you are not seeing that on the top left, if you don't mind emailing support@scottleroymarketing.com, just let them know you're not connected to your market center in Dotloop. They can do that for you almost instantly so that you can participate in class. Okay, that's a really big thing to do. So back over on this headshot, or it will be your initials on the top right black toolbar here. I just want to note for you guys, if you are an agent in multiple market centers or you are transferring from one KW office to the next, you might notice a couple extra profiles from this drop down here, and you can always toggle back and forth to see the loops in your previous market center right from this drop down here. However, if you just have one profile, that's actually more typical, so that's totally normal. And let's go ahead and click on My Account in red from that drop down here. So again, I'm hovering over my headshot on the top right, it might be your initials on the top right, and let's go ahead and select My Account from that drop down to do a little housekeeping. All right, so I just want to make sure everyone's doing this with me because I'll lose you for a little bit if you don't do this step. So again, headshot or initials on the top right, and then My Account from that drop down. Now what this My Account section does is it auto-populates all of your personal information onto every form that you bring into your loop going forward. So on a listing agreement, for example, it requires a lot of your address, your phone number, email address, and so forth, and it will auto-populate on there as long as we have that entered into the back end here. So that saves you some time in the long run. So first of all, let's make sure our headshot is entered in this little circle right here. If you don't have a headshot here, this red button should say something like upload photo, and it'll browse your computer. It's really important to have your headshot in your Dotloop account because your clients are going to be signing legal documents with you, and with so much spam across the internet, it gives them some reassurance that what they're signing is legitimate if they see a familiar face in their Dotloop account. If you do not have your headshot quite yet or just don't want to mess with it, feel free to email your headshot over to support@scottleroymarketing.com. There are about 6 different places we add your headshot throughout your KW technology, so I would highly recommend sending your headshot over to us so we can make sure that is across all of your digital marketing. All right, let's go ahead and go down these columns on the right-hand side here. If you're still adding your headshot, no worries, keep going on that. But let's just make sure certain things like your first and last name are correct here in your Dotloop account. Obviously important. All right, your email address. This is a big one. So throughout the class, I'm going to try to point out noteworthy items. So if you're taking notes with me, what notes to take down. Your Dotloop email address is one of those noteworthy items. So it's really important that you know what your Dotloop email address is, because if there is an agent on the other side of the transaction trying to share an offer to purchase with you, for example, they would need to share that offer with your Dotloop email address specifically. Okay, so this is what you'll need to give any agents trying to share forms with you. So please make sure to write down what your Dotloop email address is. And let's take a look at the fax and phone number right below there. All right, let's make sure we have your phone number and your fax number both entered in that next row down. If you don't have a fax number, no worries, you can leave that blank. Okay, a lot of times your office might have a fax, so you can always grab that fax number and enter that in as well. And of course, your phone number, you'll want that to be your business phone number. Okay, so if you're using your cell phone for your business, that's what you'd want to enter in. Moving down to the next row, we have our e-sign name and e-sign initials. So this is how your name will automatically sign on every form. So if you'd like to add your middle initial or remove your middle initial, you can absolutely do that right here. Okay, you'll typically need that to be your legal name. Moving on down to the next row, we have the company name. So you'll want to go ahead and put in Keller Williams Realty. Depending on where you are, you might have, for compliance purposes, need to put in dash your brokerage name as well. So you'll see I have Keller Williams Realty dash my brokerage name. So sometimes for compliance that'll be necessary. You can always check with your broker in charge if you're not sure. But if anything else, just go ahead and write Keller Williams Realty. And our job title here on the right side. So again, depending on where you are, I know your job title might be slightly different. If that's salesperson or broker, realtor is typically a safe bet. If you are writing the word realtor, just make sure that's in all caps. So anytime you type out the word realtor, that does have to be in all caps. And last but not least, here on this NRDS number here, the NERDS ID, make sure you go ahead and enter that in if you do have your NERDS ID. One last thing to remember. And if you're still finding that, no worries, keep doing that. And if you are done with that, go ahead and scroll down and you'll see an address section on the bottom. We will need to go ahead and put in our office address at the very bottom of this page, so we don't want our home address here. This office address will auto-populate onto every form that you bring into your loop that requires that information. So it saves you time. If you're not sure of what your office address is, feel free to Google it. Google tends to know all. All right, so go ahead and Google that office address and you can enter that in on the very bottom of your page. And once you're done with all this information, let's go ahead and click Save on the very bottom right. And once you save, you'll see this nice yellow bar letting you know that the contact information updated successfully. All right, so again, make sure we click Save on the very bottom right. It's the worst when you do all this work and forget to save it. We've all done that. So make sure, again, it's a red button on the very, very bottom right of the screen. Make sure to click Save, and then let's scroll up to the top here. Now once we click Save on the very bottom right, let's go ahead and scroll the top of our screen and click on Profiles on the left-hand side in red. Now we just have a couple more items, little housekeeping items. I know this is a little tedious, but I promise this will help save you time in the long run hugely, so you don't have to enter this into every form. All right, so go ahead and click Profiles on the top left in red. If you are an agent in multiple market centers, you might see a couple different profiles as I have here on the left side, or you might just have one, and that's totally normal. And on this page here, let's go ahead and make sure we have our phone number and our fax number entered in, if it prompts you to write that again. But where this really gets helpful is in this profile details section. So right under these phone numbers here, we have profile details. And you'll want to go ahead and enter in your license number under agent license number. So it's the one on the right-hand column on the bottom right of this section. So make sure you're entering in your agent license number. Typically it's a long string of numbers, so it helps if Dotloop enters that in every time, so you don't have to remember that, especially if you're a new agent. One less thing to remember. So again, that's on the agent license number specifically. Okay, you'll notice there is a broker license number as well, and that is for your broker in charge's license number. So make sure you're putting in your license number on the bottom right. You can always come back and fill in your broker license number at a later time if you'd like to. And as we scroll down, you should see your company and association. So you should have your office entered in right there. Again, you would have to be connected to your market center in order to have access to all the forms. So that's an important thing to note. And if you could scroll down, it typically does make us write our address one more time for the office. So make sure we have in this company section, we have our company name, so Keller Williams Realty, and maybe your brokerage name if you'd like to add that as well. And let's go ahead and enter in our office address just one more time. If you didn't know it before, well, now you do. So that's one pro to writing it in one more time. And as you're finishing up that company name, I'm just going to explain the next section, so don't feel rushed. Keep adding that in. But as you're done with that, you'll notice below that address is notification settings. So off the bat, I would recommend leaving all of these items checked. Okay, this tells you when you get email notifications, okay, and notifications within Dotloop. Go ahead and leave them all checked, but if you ever notice down the road that you're getting inundated with too many email notifications from Dotloop, You can come in here and uncheck any that you don't want to be notified of. Obviously, as you take a look at these are really important things to be notified of, such as when a document has been signed by your client, or when your signature is required, or when your office is compliance on a loop. Okay, so typically we'll want to leave all these checked, but you can toggle that at the bottom here. And let's go ahead and click Save on the very bottom right in red. And every time you save in Dotloop, you should see this yellow bar letting you know it was successful. So one last time, make sure you click Save on the bottom right. And let's scroll up to the top of your screen. And of course, you can come back in here at any time. So if you feel like you didn't have enough time to enter in all that information, again, how we got in here is just by hovering over your headshot or initials on the top right black toolbar here. And we selected My Account. If you'd like to jot down notes on how to get back here, you can edit this information at any time. So now, if you don't mind, scrolling to the very top of your screen, and let's go ahead and select the templates icon on this top right black toolbar. Okay, that'll be the icon that looks like 2 sheets of paper. And of course, feel free to let me know if I lose you at any time in the class. I'm happy to catch you up so that you can benefit the most from this class possible. So again, we are clicking on the templates icon on the top right black toolbar. It's the icon that looks like 2 sheets of paper. And that'll take you to all of the forms that your office staff graciously adds into your account for you. Now, your page right here will look different than mine. I'm in the Keller Williams Ballantyne Dotloop account. So it looks different for each office since, again, your office staff adds these in for you, but the concept is the exact same. So the first thing that you'll want to do when coming into this templates section, so let's say you have a client who's not a fan of electronic signatures, or let's say you're not a fan of technology in general. That's totally okay. You can use Dotloop to a couple different capacities to best fit how you would like to run your business. So let's talk about that scenario. You don't like technology or your client is not a fan. You can use Dotloop to simply print out a blank form, hand fill out the form and bring it onto your appointment so you can explain it to your client and have them hand sign it. And there's nothing wrong with that. So if you'd like to do that, let me show you. There's about 4 steps that you'll need to take in order to print out blank documents from Dotloop. So step 1, we did click on that templates icon on the top right black toolbar. Again, that icon that looks like 2 sheets of paper. And as we scroll down on the left-hand side, you'll see a bunch of form sets in red. Okay, so these are like your form folders that will hold all of your forms within them. So go ahead and select one of the form folders on the left-hand side. I'm going to walk through printing out a listing agreement. If you'd like to follow along, feel free to select a form folder on the left side that you think would have a listing agreement in it. So once I select that red form folder on the left side, I see it's underlined, indicating that that's the form folder I'm in. And I can click on this red search bar at the top of my screen here to search for any forms I'd like to go ahead and download. So, of course, you can scroll through and look through the forms as well, but the search bar makes this a little faster. So when I click on where it says search here, I can type in the word listing, for example, and it will pull up all the forms that have the word listing in the title. Now, a lot of these form names are a little long, so they might run off the page a little bit. If that happens, you can simply hover your mouse over that form name, and it'll give you a little speech bubble like this. That'll show you the full name, so you can make sure you're getting the correct form. All right, the next step is we're going to go ahead and click these 3 drop-down dots to the far right of whichever form you'd like to go ahead and print out. And you'll simply click download from that drop-down. What will happen is it will pull this form outside of the Dotloop system so that we can print it out and go on our merry way to our listing appointment and have our client hand sign it. So I know that was a couple steps here, so let me go ahead and overview that one more time here on how to print out blank forms. So step 1, we clicked on this templates icon on the top right black toolbar. Step 2, we're selecting the form folder on the left-hand side in red. Step 3, we're searching for the form that we would like to print out in the search bar at the top here. And the fourth and final step is we are simply clicking on these three drop-down dots on the far right and selecting download to go ahead and pull that outside of the Dotloop system so we can print out that blank form. All right, so anytime you see these three drop-down dots within Dotloop, that means more options if you see that. So that's a great place to check if you are trying to figure out how to do something within Dotloop. All right, so now that is how you go about printing out blank documents, but of course, the general concept of Dotloop is to be able to type in your forms and get those forms electronically signed by your clients, all right, to make that process a little easier and more efficient. So let's go ahead and practice how we would do that to use Dotloop to its full purpose here. So first thing we'll want to do, hopefully we know now or can guess which icon we need to click on to get back to the Dotloop homepage. And that's that icon that looks like a loop. Okay, or a smiley face with no eyes. And that will take you back to your Dotloop homepage. Now I go over the Dotloop homepage organization in detail in the Dotloop 201 class. So if you'd like to learn about organizing your Dotloop homepage, feel free to check that out as I do expand on that. But just to make sure we are all on the same page here, I do want to point out that there are two different views of the Dotloop homepage. This is the grid view that you're looking at right here with all of your loops in literal loop forms here. And so this is the grid view. And I can always toggle over to the list view by clicking on this red dot on the top right white toolbar to go over to the list view. Now, if you have never created a loop in your account, you will not have this icon until after you create your first loop, from what I've seen. So don't be alarmed if you don't have this icon, that's normal. Right, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, if I click on this red dot on the top right white toolbar here, it will take me to the list view. And if you prefer this view, that's totally fine. You can stay here for class. You'll create a loop by clicking create a loop right here. But just to make sure I'm teaching so that everyone is on the same page, I'm actually going to teach from the grid view. So I'm going to toggle back on over by clicking this red dot on the top right white toolbar to get back to this grid view. But you can see how easy it is to flop back and forth between the two Dotloop homepage views. And again, for more info on that, feel free to watch the Dotloop 201 video as well. Now, if you prefer this Dotloop homepage view, we're going to click this big red plus sign here to start a new loop. So we're going to create a practice loop within your account by clicking that big plus sign on your screen. And if you'd like to go ahead and name this loop 123 practice loop, 123 Main Street, your home address, whatever you'd like to name it, right? It's really great to have a practice loop in your account so that you can actually practice doing things in Dotloop before going on an appointment. So you look like you know what you're doing. Always a positive. So I'm going to go ahead and name this the property address here. And just a heads up, you will want to name your loop the property address if at all possible. I realize if you're representing the buyer, you won't know the property address right out the gate. No worries, I'll show you exactly how you can change that later. But for now, go ahead and put in an address. 123 practice loop is a good one to do. And let's go ahead and click create loop. This red button on the bottom right here. And that will start you off in your new loop. Now, once you're within your loop, I want to tell you about the three main sections of your loop that you'll want to focus on. So first of all, you'll notice at the top of your screen, you do have this document section here. This is where you'll be spending most of your time within your loop. It's where you'll be adding documents to your loop, typing in those forms, sending it to your client so they can electronically sign and so forth. So most of your time will be spent in this document section at the top here. But let's go ahead and scroll down to take a look at the other two main sections of your loop. And I'd like to draw your attention to the people section near the very bottom of your loop. So if you're going to scroll on down to the bottom, you'll see that people section, and that will show you anyone that's involved in this transaction. Now you'll always see yourself in the people section and also the admin within your office. Okay, your admin can always see your loop, which is great because they do compliance on your loops, so you can get paid, always a plus. All right, so for this people section here is where you'll see any other people involved in this transaction, your clients, mortgage providers, and so forth. And we'll go into adding people in just a moment here. And lastly, we have this task section on the very bottom of our screen. In this task section, as I mentioned earlier, you can create to-do lists for yourself in the system. You can actually create to-do list templates. So let's say you have a listing going live. You can put a to-do list for your listing in every listing loop that you have, that you create, to remind you to do things like put the sign in the yard, put out the lockbox, get it professionally measured, make it live in the MLS. All the 90 different things that go into making a listing live. You can create a to-do list of those items on the bottom of your loop to help keep yourself on track. So really great tool there. For now though, let's go ahead and scroll to the very top of our loop. And a big question that we get is, great, I created a loop, now what do I do? Okay, and the first thing that you're going to want to do upon creating your loop every time is go to the very top of your loop and click View Details right under the property address. Okay, so this is one of those things that if you don't follow along on this part, I'll lose you for a little while. So if you don't mind following along on this part here, we're scrolling to the top of our loop and clicking View Details right under the property address in red here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click View Details right under the property address, loop name here, and that will take me into the back end of this loop specifically. Now, before we get going on all this, what this section does, as you scroll down, if you'd like to take a look at what we're about to do, this section here, if you enter in any information about this property, it will autofill that information onto every single form that you bring into that loop. Okay, so it saves you a huge amount of time to enter it in once here, and then Dotloop puts that information onto every form you bring into this loop. So big time saver on this, and we'll go into that more in just a moment here. But if you wouldn't mind scrolling to the top of this section, we're going to start at the top and work our way down. So the first thing you'll want to do is select a transaction type on the very top, kind of left side. You'll see a drop down. You'll just click on Select Transaction Type. And you'll want to either label this as a purchase, a listing for sale, okay, or lease, or so forth. All right, so we're going to go ahead and select Listing for Sale. If you'd like to follow along in my example in today's class, we're going to work on a listing today. So we're selecting Listing for Sale under Transaction Type. And under Loop Status here, okay, you do have to select transaction type first, then it will allow you to select a loop status. So we can change that status to whatever we'd like. So let's say active listing or pre-listing and so forth. Okay, these statuses really help with the organization of your loop, of your Dotloop homepage, okay? So again, statuses are really important for organization, and I go into that and much more in depth in the Dotloop 201 class, so feel free to check that out for more info on that. And on the right-hand side, you'll see how easy it is to change your loop name. So if you were representing the buyer and you just had the buyer's name here, you can also add the property address. So I could go ahead and change and add my client's name to the end here. Click Save, and you'll see that it updates right away. So that's how easy it is to change your loop name, right here on the top right. All right, and in this people section, let's now work on adding our clients to the loop. So that is, of course, one of the first steps you'll do as you create a loop is adding your clients to the loop so they can electronically sign. And the first thing you'll want to do, as you might have guessed, is go ahead and click on Add Person, that red option on the top right of this people section here. So I clicked on Add Person in red on the top right of that people section. And there's three main things that you'll need to add a client to your loop. That is the full name, email address, and role. So if you'd like to go ahead and put in your spouse's name, your kid's name, John Smith, if you're not feeling very creative today. All right, let's go ahead and make a practice contact here. Practice client. All right, my client will be Tony Stark today for any Iron Man fans. So we need a first and last name, and we need an email address. A good idea with this practice loop is go ahead and put in a personal email address that you have. So an email address that is not associated with Dotloop. Okay, that's an important thing to note. But it's really great if you put in a personal email address here, because then you can see what it looks like when your clients receive forms to sign, so that if they have questions in the future, you can help them through that. All right, so we have a first and last name, email address, and let's go ahead and select a role. On the bottom right here, it's really, really important. Your clients will not be able to electronically sign unless they are assigned a role here. So I can't stress how important it is to go ahead and give your client a role. And since we're doing a listing, I'm going to assign this role as seller. But you'll see a little gray scroll bar on the right side that you can scroll down and look at all the different roles that you have available to assign this person here. So I'm labeling that role as seller. And as you're finishing up here, I'd like to go ahead and explain this add to my team button here. If you are taking notes, this is one of those noteworthy items. Please make a note that if you are adding a client to your loop, you never, ever, ever want to click this add to my team checkbox right here. Okay, so what this checkbox does is it would allow your client to see everything in your loop that you can see, and you of course don't want that. So the general concept of Dotloop is everything is private in your loop until it is shared. So your clients will only be able to see the documents that you manually choose to share with them. Okay, so again, we do not want to click this add to my team button if you are adding a client to the loop. Very important on that. You can't undo it either, unfortunately. But it is a really cool tool, actually, so let's talk about when we would want to use this add to my team feature. So if you are working with another agent in your office on a listing, so let's say you're on the same side of the listing, so you're co-listing the property on the same side of the transaction, you're working together. If you add that other agent to this loop and click add to my team, it will add this loop to that agent's Dotloop account as well, so you can both collaborate on the loop together. You both would have full access to everything within the loop and share the tasks. So that's a really great time to use it. Another great time to use this add to my team feature. If you are on a real estate team and you have an admin on your team, you can add your admin to every loop and click add to my team, and it would add this loop to your admin's Dotloop account so they can do things for you as well. So just a couple of scenarios when you'd want to use that, but again, please make sure to write down to never click this button if you are adding a client to the loop. So now that we went over that long spiel, all right, we have the three main things we need: name, email, and role. So I can go ahead and click add person on the bottom right in red to officially add that client in. Now, if there were a spouse in the transaction, of course, you could click add person and go through that process again to add the spouse. Now, as I mentioned, you'll always see yourself and the admin in your loop here, but you will want to go in and give yourself a role. Again, you cannot electronically sign without a role. So it's really important that you always give your clients a role and also yourself a role. So that's one thing you'll want to know as well. So under your name here, let's go ahead and click where it says none and change that to listing agent. And let's scroll on down. All right, so that is how you add people to your loop. So hopefully we're feeling pretty comfortable on how to add people to a loop. Dotloop is pretty user-friendly, so things are pretty intuitive, but of course, let me know if you have any questions at all. As we scroll down, you'll start to see a lot of property information. And again, what this section does is it auto-populates any information entered in here onto every form that you bring into your loop. So that you can see what that looks like when Dotloop autofills your forms, let's go ahead and just enter in the property address information here. So if you want to go ahead and put in just some few pieces of information here: street number, street name, and so feel free to add in whatever information you'd like to. And also feel free to kind of scroll down and see all the great information you have in this backend here that will autofill for you. So as a new agent, looking at some of these forms that are 10 pages and a lot of verbiage, it's pretty overwhelming to look at these forms and know where on that form the simplest information goes, right? Any financial information or contract dates. That's a great thing about Dotloop. As a new agent, this backend section here straight up asks you for that information, and then Dotloop knows where on the form to put these pieces of information for you. So it's great to teach you where to put things on forms, and it helps save you time so you're not going through a treasure hunt to try and find the right field for each piece of information. So I can't suggest this autofill section more, especially for new agents. It's a really great tool as you're learning these forms. And feel free to scroll on down to look at all the awesome information you can enter in here. And as you're finishing up, let's go ahead and scroll to the very top of our screen and click Save on the top right red toolbar. So again, make sure we don't forget to scroll to the top and click Save on the top right on that red toolbar here. And once it's officially saved, you will see a yellow bar letting you know the save is successful. Always makes me feel better to confirm that was done. And once we click Save on the top right, let's go ahead and click Back to Loop on the top left of your screen. You'll see it says Back to Loop on the white toolbar right under the black area there. So I clicked on Back to Loop to get back to my main loop page. Now we get to get in the fun stuff, bringing in a template or a document into your loop to start working on it. Now you'll notice you should already have a folder within your loop here, and you should already be seeing these 3 blue boxes on your screen. If you are not for any reason, no worries. Feel free to just go ahead and click Add Document to the right side of any folder that you might have added in. And that will show you these 3 blue boxes here of different ways that you can add forms to your loop. In today's class, in the Dotloop 101 class, we'll be heavily focusing on this first option here for the templates. The Dotloop 201 class is where I go into the second 2 options as well. So if you're interested in that, feel free to check out Dotloop 201 on slmtraining.com. But for now, I'd like to make a note of something with you guys. I just want to draw full circle here. This templates icon right here is the same icon that we started class on the top right black toolbar here. Just trying to draw this full circle for everyone. So as we click on this first blue box, okay, where it says templates, you'll notice it says add an interactive form by selecting one from templates. So I'm going to select that first blue box. And this should look pretty familiar to you. Because again, this is where we started class in that template section. You'll want to use this gray scroll bar on the first column. So we're going to start on this first column on the left. And we can use that scroll bar there to scroll down to whichever form folder we'd like to select in red on the left-hand side. So I'm going to be bringing in a listing agreement. If you'd like to follow along and do the same, feel free. Or you can pull in any form into your loop. It'll be the same concept. So again, I am selecting the form folder on the left-hand side in red that I think would have a listing agreement in it. I am then going to click on this reddish search bar here on the top of this box to search for the word listing. Once I do so, all the forms that have the word listing in the subject line or in the title will pop up. And again, just a reminder, if it's running off your page, you can hover your mouse over that form name and it'll pop up a little speech bubble telling you the full form name. And all you'll need to do is click the checkbox to the left of whichever forms you'd like to bring into your loop. You can do that for just one form. You can select multiple to bring in at a time as well. Once we click that checkbox to the left of whichever form we'd like to bring in, I'm simply going to click this big red copy button on the bottom right. Once I click copy on the bottom right of that box, it'll give me this nice green check mark letting me know one of one was imported, and I can click OK. And there we are. We have successfully pulled in our first form into our loop. All right, so now to start editing the form, all you need to do is simply click on that form name to pull it open in Dotloop so we can start preparing that form. So again, let's go ahead and click on that form name to open that up in our loop so we can start working with it. Now, right when you click on that form, you should see this autofill box pop up right away. This autofill box is your friend, so please make sure not to click that X on the top right. We like this autofill box for a couple reasons here. First, biggest reason we like this autofill box is your clients will not be able to electronically sign unless they are assigned their role. I know I've said that a couple times here, but this is very crucial, especially in this section here, that you see your client's name in line with seller 1 here. If you do not see your client's name in line with their role, no worries. Okay, you can definitely click on select person from that in line with whichever role you'd like to assign. And you can either simply click on that client's name if you see it on this list, or let's say you weren't aware of the spouse in the transaction until this time, you can absolutely click add person here as well to add in that spouse's information. Super important that we have seller 1 as your client, and then listing agent, you should see your name. Again, they won't be able to electronically sign without it. I know I'm a broken record on that, but very important, just want to stress that. And also we like this autofill box because it autofills all this information that you see in this box onto the form for you. So the property address should be auto-populated in there already since we entered that in the view details section of our loop. So look at that, saving us time already. And you'll notice as you scroll down, if you are on a listing agreement and there's a place for your contact information, that should already be autofilling because we did that at the beginning of class in the My Account section. So hopefully you're seeing that this is paying off, spending a little time doing that housekeeping. But feel free to scroll to the very bottom of your screen and let's go ahead and click autofill, that big red button on the bottom right. This is a very important step. So we're scrolling to the very bottom of that page and clicking autofill on the bottom right there. All right, and that will take you over to this document that we're ready to edit. And you'll notice on the right-hand side, it might give you a little black box here that says 2 roles have been assigned and 13 fields have been autofilled. I can tell which fields have been autofilled because they're yellow. Okay, so any yellow fields that you see on your form, that indicates to you that has been autofilled. Now let's take a look at how easy it is to go ahead and start editing these forms. All you'll need to do to start typing in a text box, for example, is you simply click on the text box and start typing. Okay, so it's that easy to edit text boxes. You simply click to start typing. Pretty cool, huh? All right, any check boxes that you see, you can simply click to check it. So we're checking any check boxes. Any fields that you see, a date field. And guys, I know your form might look different than mine. I'm working on North Carolina forms. Of course, they look different in all states. It'd be nice if they all look the same, wouldn't it? But these fields you might be finding on different places on your form. And I just wanted to assure you that's totally fine and normal. But if you can find a date field on your form, you'll notice it's a date field because it has a little calendar icon in it. So for the expiration date, for example, I can click that field. It will pop up a calendar where I can use these little arrows on the top right and left to click. Sorry, that was a little fast. So I can click to select the expiration date from that calendar. All right, so that is how easy it is to go through and prepare your form. Now, let's use our imagination that we went through and we typed up the entire form first. That would be your first step, is preparing the form, going to each page, clicking on each text box to start typing right away. Okay. Now, as we finish up with preparing the form, typing it all in, let's take a look at the initial fields. So if you'd like to scroll down to any initial fields or signature fields that might be on your form, it'll be the same concept. I'd like to point out that it's really important where it says seller initials. that it has your client's initials in print. Now, when your client actually goes to sign this, it'll be in cursive with a time and date stamp. All right, so if I were to print out this form, this field right here would be blank. But seeing my client's initials in print in this initial box indicates to me that I set it up correctly so that my client can electronically sign. If you just see seller in both these boxes, they will not be able to electronically sign. So it's super important that you see your client's initials in each initial box that they would need to sign. So let's say, I don't see that. I don't see my client's initial. It just says seller on the bottom here. To fix that, all you would need to do is come up to this black toolbar on the top of your screen here and select autofill. Okay, so we like this autofill box. It is our friend. It's asking if I'd like to save it. I'm going to go ahead and click yes. It'll bring this autofill box back up where I would need to cross-check that I have my seller in line with seller 1. My client's name would need to be here. And then once I've corrected that, I would scroll back down and click autofill, and that would make my client's initial appear right here. So that is how you would fix it if by chance you do not see your client's initial on the bottom of, or on any initial boxes. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's go ahead and sign it. If you're working on a listing agreement, I believe in most states, you as the agent would have to sign that as well. So let's take a look at what that looks like because it looks very similar to when your client signed as well. So in the first field that I need to sign as a listing agent, I'm going to go ahead and click on it and click Sign Now from that drop down. The first time and the first time only that you as a listing agent or your client goes to sign a form, it will prompt them, you or your clients, to make sure that the name is spelled correctly. So for example, if you misspelled your client's name, they do have the ability the first time they're going to sign something to rectify their name, or maybe they like to sign with their middle initial. Okay, you can absolutely add that in here, and this again does look the exact same when your clients go to sign for the first time as well. You can also draw your signature, so if you're on a tablet, that's a great thing to do. If you're on a computer, I would just let Dotloop do the signing for you here. It looks like a 5-year-old signed it if you try and sign on a computer. It's kind of funny. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let Dotloop sign my name here and click Adopt and Sign on the bottom right. And you'll see now the difference between when something is actually electronically signed in cursive with a time and date stamp versus just it's set up correctly to be signed. Okay, so that's the difference there. Now I'd like to scroll down to a signature field. It's the exact same concept, but I just want to make sure you see it and feel comfortable with the signature fields as well. So if you do have a signature field on the form you're working with, feel free to scroll to that signature field just so we can practice that quickly. You will want to note that any signature fields that your client needs to sign, it would need to say your client's name, sign here. So it should not say seller, sign here, for example. Having your client's name, sign here, indicates to you, again, that you set it up correctly. They will be able to electronically sign. And of course, as we come back down to this where the listing agent signs, we'll see all of our information is auto-populated. So we don't have to type that in, and we can come up and click on that place you need to sign and click Sign Now, and I'll pop that in. Now just a heads up guys, do make sure that you absolutely go through the entire form and fill out everything first before sending it to your client to electronically sign. If they sign it, so if your client signs the form, you get the form back and oh, you notice you need to change something or add it. If you try and make any edits to the form after it's been signed, it will erase all signatures because it thinks your client didn't sign for that change. So that makes sense. But again, just make sure that you fill out the form entirely first and then share it to your clients to be signed. Which that takes us into our next part, is actually sharing the form. So use your imagination that we have prepared this entire form. Now we are ready to send this off to our client for them to electronically sign it. What you'll want to do is come up to the top right of your screen where it says Save and Share. There'll be a big red button on the top right of your screen where it says Save and Share. And you will get the share screen pop up here. If it asks you to save it first, go ahead and click yes. But it shows you here on the share screen, it shows you what document that you're saving right here. I'm sorry, what document you're sharing to make sure you're sharing the correct document. You can take a look at that. You'll see who has access. So if you can't remember if you already shared this form to your client, their name would be here if you had already shared that. You will always see your name and your office staff in this who has access field. And we have this add people section here. So you'll notice that my client has a check mark here. That's who we're sharing it to. I can see right here that this client has 11 fields assigned to them. So that's reassuring again to me that I set it up correctly, that this client will be able to assign 11 fields. And let's go ahead and click on this drop down on the far right where it should say can sign off default. And let's go over the different sharing settings that you can share this form in. Now the one we have selected now, this can sign, that is the one that you'll use 8, 9 times out of 10. That is the one that's most popularly used as can sign. So if you share it as can sign capabilities, what that does is it allows your client to do nothing but sign the form, right? You're the real estate professional. You're the one that has the knowledge to fill out these forms. You don't want your client messing with the form and filling in information and changing things such as, oh, you know, your commission rate, for example. And so typically you'll want to share your form as can sign here so that they can't alter the information. But let's go ahead and talk about the other options here and when we would use each one of those. Now I know this is a lot of information, guys, and you'll notice that if you hover your mouse over any of these options here, it does pop up a little black speech bubble basically telling you what I'm about to explain as well. So if you ever forget, it's here as well. All right, so view only. I'm going to start at the top of this list. View only, so times you would use that. So if you share that as view only, of course, as you might have guessed, the person can only view the form, they can't sign it, they can't edit it. Times you would want to use this view only option is, let's say if you have a fully executed offer to purchase and you are trying to share that with your mortgage provider. You could add your mortgage provider's name here, their email address, and add them as view only. Another time you might want to use that if you're representing a younger couple who aren't quite sure about the forms they're signing and they want their parents to review the forms before signing it. Right? You can add your client's parents here and share it as can view only so they can take a look at that. All right, so that was that top option here. We went over can sign, which again is the most popularly used option. Let's go on down to can fill in sign. Okay, the main time that you'll use can fill in sign is if you're sharing property disclosures. So for example, if you are sharing the residential property disclosure, you need your client to be able to fill out the form because they know the facts of the age of the HVAC, the age of the roof. Okay, they need to be able to go in and enter in the information and then sign the form. So really that's the main time you'll use can fill in sign, again, is on the property disclosures or any form that you do need your clients to actually fill out. And lastly here we do have the can edit in private, and that is best to share it if you are sharing it to the agent on the other side of the transaction. Sharing as can edit in private will make it so the agent on the other side can do a counter offer, for example. So of course when that agent starts manipulating the form and changing the information to counter, it will erase your client's information because they didn't sign for that. So rest assured there. But it does allow the agent on the other side to have all the same capabilities that you have. So they can counter offer and you guys can work together to get the transaction going. I know that was an overload of information. Just know that can sign is really the main one to use there. And all you'll do is click share. If you did use a personal email address with this client, go ahead and click share. And I would recommend after class going into that personal email address and opening the form so you can see how easy it is for your clients to sign. It literally just takes them down to each signature field to have them sign one after another. It makes it really easy for them. Now the last thing I want to go over before I let you guys go enjoy your Friday Eve is just how to submit for compliance review. So this will be fast. I know I'm going a little over here. So if you need to leave, feel free to do so. I'll have this recorded. But if you can stick around, let's go ahead and click on this back arrow on the top left of your screen. So it's the top left black toolbar here. It's kind of hard to see that red arrow here. and that'll take you back to your loop. Now you will need to be submitting your loop for review so that your office can do compliance on your loop for you. Now typically your office does compliance on your loop to make sure you have all the forms that you need to be in compliance and so you can get paid, which I think this is why we do real estate. So to submit for review, all you'll need to do is click on Submit for Review on the top right of your loop here. You'll see it says Submit for Review. And by the way, don't do this right now. Okay, your admin won't be too happy with me if they get a bunch of random loops that aren't ready to be looked at. So feel free to watch on my screen here. I'll click Submit for Review. It'll ask me which folder I would like to submit. Right, so if you do have multiple folders here, you can select which folders are ready and select the type as, let's say, a listing folder. And then all you would do is click Submit here to send that to your office for review. Now you can also write a note to explain what you're submitting for review if you're adding missing documents. But again, do not click Submit right now, but that is how you would do it. And also check in with your office staff on their policy on when they would like for you to submit for review. A lot of offices that I see will want you to submit for review 3 times if it's your listing. You'll want to submit for review once when the listing goes live on the MLS, a second time when it goes under contract, and a third time for closing. Right? If it's a sale, if you're representing the buyer, you'll submit your loop twice for review, once when it goes under contract and once for it closes. Now, each office has different policies on when they want you submitting for review, so make sure to check in with your office staff to make sure you have that down. And the very last thing I will show you in today's class is if you could go ahead and click on View Details. On the very top under your loop name, I need to show you how to submit a green sheet. This will be real quick, so if you can just go ahead and click on View Details right under the property address here. And we clicked on View Details, and that's where you'll see you have the option to submit to green sheet on the top right. Typically, your office will want you to submit to green sheet when you go under contract. What a green sheet is, if you've never heard of that, is it tells your office how you're getting paid. So if you are splitting the transaction with anyone or the commission with anyone in your office, if you're sending out a referral, so typically you'll need to submit a green sheet to get paid. So very important. All right, make sure your pop-up blocker is off so you can pull up that green sheet right away from here. All right, guys, so that is how you submit for review right from here. So we went over adding documents to your loop, preparing those forms, sharing it to your client to electronically sign, and of course also submitting for review. If you have any questions on all of this or would like these instructions written out on how to do something, feel free to email me at support@scottleroymarketing.com. You can put attention my name, which is Leah, Leah. I'm happy to write out any instructions or help you guys through this to help make your Dotloop experience easy and efficient. All right, guys, let me know if you have questions. I hope you guys have a great Friday Eve and happy looping.